So we are talking about LinkedIn strategies.
Because now they've made the decision to find you instead of you reaching out to them.
Welcome to the Business Builder Throwdown. With your hosts, Holly Jean Jackson and Matt Rouse. And moderator and referee, D. Scott Smith.
Hey, welcome to Thursday afternoon here at the Business Builders Throwdown. I'm Scott Smith, and I get to mediate, to moderate between Holly Jean Jackson and Matt Rouse. Now, we're going to take a side with Matt today for direct messaging, or should you focus on content? Now, I've heard that content is king, and I'm going to find out by listening to Holly if that's true, because she's not taking that side. And Matt is going to defend content, and we'll see, is content king? But we want you to decide. We want you to make comments. This is an interactive show. So is it LinkedIn strategy, direct messaging, LinkedIn strategy, content? Let the show begin.
All right. Well, I'm going to start by introducing myself then. This is Holly Jean Jackson. I am a holistic business coach. That means I work with entrepreneurs and small business owners on how to start, build, or scale their business. And with me, I have my lovely co-host, Matt Rouse.
Hey everybody, Matt Rouse. I run Hook SEO and Hook Digital Marketing Canada with my business partner, Scott Burson, and we are an international marketing agency with clients in 5 countries, and we are also, at our heart, an SEO and content agency. So I'm going to be taking the side of content today because we crush it with content.
Well, let's find out if content is king. All right, who was going to start off? Holly, are you going to start today?
Why not? Because I'm going to say direct message is queen, since king is apparently taken over there.
Good day, peasants.
So I should have brought my tiara. Anyways, I'm saying direct messaging is the best strategy. Because LinkedIn was built on relationships. My business and when I coach my clients is built on those relationships. And where do those relationships happen? They happen in direct messaging. That's where it starts. So for me, LinkedIn, the best strategy is reaching out directly, connecting with that person, building the rapport, whether it's for collaborations. Like I met Scott, our host, our moderator.
The moderator,
through LinkedIn.
Indeed.
We would not be here today without LinkedIn. And so for me, it's all about building those relationships for collaboration, for finding clients, and even for finding your future business partner when you're doing business. And there's some really cool things you can do with direct message, including voiceover notes to potential clients or people you want to get on there. Something that Matt actually shared with me as a strategy was to have a virtual coffee with people and invite them into having that relationship through direct message. And by the way, Matt, that is converting really well. All right, Matt, what do you think?
So I love this, that you have in your argument for direct messaging included your opponent in this one as part of that strategy. So Matt, what do you have to answer?
Right. So I love the strategy of the virtual coffee, and we should talk about what that is because we covered that on a previous episode. But the idea is you have in your calendar, it just says, have a virtual coffee with Holly. And it's like a little 30-minute meeting you could schedule. And then you use a short link for your calendar, and you just say, hey, we should get coffee sometime, but I know we're on Zoom or, we're far away or something, so let me send you my link. And then they go in and click on virtual coffee, and then you have your coffee, and we cheers and hang out. That's right. You got to get it right because it's backwards on the camera. Content is king. And let me tell you why content is king.
He must be a king.
LinkedIn determines the amount of people who see you based on how much engagement your content is. So the more engaging your content is, the more reach you're going to get. And the way that the algorithm determines reach is based on a number of factors, but the biggest factor is if there's a conversation happening in the comments on your content. So similar to a direct message, someone comments on a post that you make and you start having a conversation back and forth with them or several people, LinkedIn's algorithm takes that as a signal that this content would be interesting to the other connections of the people who commented. So not just your own connections, but the connections of the commenters. And that's how stuff spreads on LinkedIn. It doesn't have to be shared by clicking like a share button. By focusing on content that is engaging, that's relevant, that has eye-catching photo or video, and things like live video content like we're in right now. Those are the things that get people's attention. And when you regularly post content, you're top of mind because people are seeing your name and they're just waiting for that, the thing that kind of ticks the box for them to come out of the woodwork and comment, because people are what we call in the social media world lurkers. They watch and they watch and they watch. They never push the like button. They never comment until they see that one piece of content that kind of encourages them, and then they will comment on it, or they may reach out to you with a DM to you.
So I like the idea that you talked about the content in the algorithm. So that's a good plus on your side. The live video is still elusive. There are many of us that are mere mortals that have yet to have that superpower dispensed. But I understand what you're saying. So putting out the content, and I have seen this in the feed where it said Matt Rouse commented on this, and then there was content from a person that I had never met before, and it was there in my feed, and so it gave me the opportunity to comment on that. And so what I'm really hearing is that you make good content, allow people to comment and share on it. It's going to expand into more people, but it's really down to those conversations that you have with the individuals. Is that correct?
The content that you have that starts a conversation is the content that's going to spread the furthest. And then those people see your name and they can connect with you, or they can get an idea about what it is you do. There's a term that went around in the kind of early 2000s of the internet, and it was called microblogging. And the way that Twitter actually came out is Twitter said somebody needs to make a microblogging platform where you can just have just a few little words to talk about, or a sentence or two, right? So think about LinkedIn instead of like something like Facebook or Instagram where you're like, what am I going to post today? It should be a microblog, something that's interesting, engaging, relevant to your audience or whoever it is that you're trying to reach. And it should have basis in fact. It can be fictional, if it's a story or something like that. But stuff that works really well is things like data. Anything that you have advice around, that kind of content works really well.
Now I like this. Now, Holly, I'm going to give you a moment here, because I what I'm hearing is that it's those conversations that the content generates. And you start off by saying that LinkedIn was built on relationships, and that's how we connect, is through these direct messages. Now, Matt's talking about a similar connection, but through the comment section. So I'm going to let you take it and tell us why the DM is so powerful in building those relationships.
Yeah, so DM is so powerful. I can't tell you how many clients that I work with and they're only posting content on LinkedIn. And not all of them are great at getting that engagement on LinkedIn. I'd say that's a rather small percentage. If they're working with a company or agency like Matt's, then they're more likely to have those engaging pieces. So the problem with only posting content is it's not always generating that engagement. It's not generating that one-to-one. And so without that missing piece, content is not king. So if it's content alone, it's not relationship. It's not generating those leads, which is the most important part of why you're using the platform. So for me, I think DMs, if I have to choose between the two, is important. Now, if the king and the queen had a baby, that would be perfect. And then you've got content for the right audience. And then you're reaching out for DMs for the people that it's aligned to that are your ideal client. And that is the perfect strategy.
Now, I want to ask you about the DMs because we all get these in our inbox, and they're the automated ones. Now, I can tell that because I go by my middle name, Scott, but I have that initial out there in the front, D. And I have an unusual title, Motivational Listener. And I have actually saved in my inbox someone who was reaching out and it said, "Hey, D, I'm always interested in adding more motivational listeners to my network." So what do you have to say about DMs in that world? Because maybe it's turning us off a little bit.
Yeah, so this is kind of ironic. Let's say somebody that I know used that to meet you, and that's how we met before I realized that organic outreach was better. But I'm just saying. That's not real. Like that's hearsay. So I find that the automation, people use that. It's just like when you're buying Instagram followers. They're not necessarily the best fit. It's not really generating your voice. It's not authentic, and people can see that and they can feel that and sense that. And I agree, the factor on LinkedIn is getting really high. So the approach that I'm taking when I'm advising clients or I'm doing direct outreach is I am literally trying to add value. And that's why I love Matt's idea of the coffee with Holly or that virtual Java. It's more casual. It's not necessarily trying to lead to a sales conversation. It could be a collaboration. It could be adding value. It could be networking to that next person that could be a client. It could be building those power referral partners.
Mm-hmm.
And that is what LinkedIn is about those relationships so we can help each other grow. And when you're a business owner, you can't know it all. So you need to have power partners for intelligence and information so that when you need to outsource things or get that assistance, you have that. And so that's why it's so powerful to have these direct messages, but organic direct messages that are authentic.
Yeah. And so the challenge now when Matt's creating this content and I comment on it, and it gets shown and it puts into his feed. So maybe he's going to find new people that he hasn't met before to be able to connect with. Which is better? Should I use content, Matt, to find new people, or how do I find the people to send these direct messages to? Matt, let's hear what you have on this one.
Well, I'll tell you a secret I have to getting connections on LinkedIn that came up just recently. I believe it was the beginning of last year when I started getting a lot of automated messages. So I changed the kind of sub headline there on my LinkedIn so that it says, "Won't DM you to sell anything."
Okay.
Since then, I have almost 100% connection rate on LinkedIn. Somebody comments on something, or I see that they're friends of someone, friend of a friend kind of thing, or a connection of a connection, right? I just go to them and I just hit the connect button. They almost always accept me, and I never DM them to sell them anything. Right? Now, that doesn't mean that I don't ever direct message someone. So I will, from time to time, I might say, "Hey, I saw that you are in industry X. I have someone who works with people in this industry. Would you like me to connect you?" Right?
Very good.
What I'm doing.
Very good use of a DM, by the way.
That's right. Thank you. And I mean, Holly's right. The automated ones, there is a place for automation. The place for automation is not the first conversation you have with another human being, right? Because you're not having a conversation. An AI or a program is having a conversation on your behalf. And I know that a lot of people like to automate that and then jump in at a point later, but I think you need to start there being the person and then automate tasks like, finding a ticket number or, whatever that is, for your business. I don't think automation belongs in the relationship building piece. Does that make sense?
Very good. Holly, go ahead.
Oh, I completely agree. Automation and relationship building, it doesn't work. And I am obsessed with automation for scalability in a business, but there are ways to do that. So that could be your welcome email campaign. Yeah, automate the heck out of that, or automate things that your staff are doing, or in previous time-saving tip shows that Matt and I have had on Clubhouse, etc. There's all kinds of gems for automation, but it's like, would you go to your first date with somebody and have a robot go on your behalf? No.
We certainly hope not.
Yeah. We'll have an episode about companion robots another time.
All right. We'll pass on that one because we can get into the weeds really quick. So we are talking about LinkedIn strategies, which is better. And Holly is supporting direct messaging because LinkedIn is built on relationships, and you can create those relationships by having a conversation. Matt purports that creating good, engaging content will spread your word to more people because they're commenting on it, and you have the opportunity to engage with them through the comments section. So both of these seem to be based on having conversations with people outside of automation. And I don't know that there's any particular automation for commenting on LinkedIn posts, which is I will say it's a plus on there, because I'll know that if I have comments on there, it wasn't some automaton.
Right.
So that's I'm going to say that's giving me a plus on the content side. So I'm just telling you, that's the way I'm leaning.
Wow.
Holly,
So,
I feel like we might need to get a ref that's like a slightly less biased.
I'm just telling you right now because I want to give you the opportunity to rebut.
Okay. Well, again, I'm not proposing that we do automation for direct messaging. What I'm saying is that from the hundreds of clients that I've worked with, when they're only doing content, their business is suffering. And unless their content is 100% perfect and they're, really experts at generating content for their ideal audience, which I'd say 95% of them are not, content only takes you so far. And yes, while you can't automate comments on content and they're genuine, that doesn't necessarily make content king. Again, content is king if you actually pair it with the DM messaging. But if you're only putting content out there, how are you creating those relationships? How are you building your pipeline? How are you finding power partners? These things don't magically happen by putting content out. The reality is that when you're working with clients, they have to have sales calls. They have to have these conversations. And how are you building that pipeline? You're doing that through direct messaging. You're doing that through your marketing. So yes, content is king, but it needs to be followed up with DM mess. Otherwise, it's never going to happen.
So let me just tell you that in the office place, it has been my experience that the absolute heaviest piece of office equipment is the receiver on your phone. There are people who would rather make a funnel out of a piece of paper and reload the printer cartridge with toner by hand than make sales calls. And I think people still equate that with the DM. When they're sending out a DM, they might feel like it's making that cold call, and they feel a little kind of squishy about wanting to do that, and that maybe just putting out content feels easier. So, Matt, can you talk about that? And then Holly, we'll let you, because I heard you take a big breath and you're ready to go.
99.99% of people hate cold calling. You're going to find some people who love it, and it's not our fault that they hate themselves. But the thing with cold calling is that even in DMs and stuff, that's why people use automation, is they don't want a cold call, right? They don't want to get that negative feedback. However, Holly mentioned something, and I wanted to touch on it briefly because this is important. She said that when you put out your content, then your customers don't connect with you like magic, right? And she said, well, how do you build a funnel out of that? Well, the magic is you want your customers or your potential customers or leads or your connections on LinkedIn, you want them to read your information and your stories and all the content that you put out, and then have them search to find you. And when they search to find you, that's the moment that they enter your funnel.
I see.
Because now they've made the decision to find you instead of you reaching out to them.
All right.
And that is how inbound marketing works, right? It's inbound because they're reaching into you. And this may actually be a conversation between, should you be doing inbound or outbound marketing? And that answer is going to be different for most people. And, I hate to say it because it is a throwdown, right? And it's a battle between two ideas. But what's going to happen is it's going to be probably, some of one and some of the other. And that is going to go up or down depending upon how your company, works. So maybe you do 90% content and 10% messaging, right? Or it could be 50-50 or whatever that amount of time that you spend on it is.
All right, Holly, I know you've got a big breath there and you're ready to breathe out some wisdom for us.
Okay, so I think from my perspective, a lot of the clients I work with, they're newer to the platform, they're newer to business. And so from that perspective, DMing is going to be more effective and faster. Now, I can't argue against the fact that having valid content and social proof is going to help you convert your DMs faster, because I agree that's valid and that's true. So it's important to have good content. My point is, if I have to choose between the two, I'm going to choose direct message. I have built so many partnerships, collaborations, and potential clients. And yes, it is like cold calling. The problem that I have with a lot of clients is they think that they can hire a company and it's just magically going to convert clients. The reality is sure, it might get them on the phone, but you still have to have that sales conversation. So why not practice building that relationship and finding those right ideal clients by DMing them versus cold calling them? And it's not cold, it's still warm outreach. You're connecting to something you've read on their profile. I'm not just, randomly messaging them. I'm like, oh, I really like this article I just saw on your profile. It's amazing. Or I hear you specialize in real estate for families. That's amazing. How is it going? So it's still a warm outreach, and it's easier because you have more data points on them on the LinkedIn platform versus just calling them.
All right. I think one of the things that we found here is that you're going to have to step up and connect to people for real, whether you're doing it through DMs or you're doing it through comments and carrying on conversations. And so what we see is that people are a little timid about what they have to sell and that they actually have a value to offer. So now we're going to have to do a throwdown around mindset sometime here to figure out how do people come up with the right mindset to say, I have the right to contact this person through a direct message because they or someone they know has a problem that I can solve. And it is not right for me to withhold that from them. And it might be that I need to create really good content that highlights the problem and that I have the solution for it. And it might be you or someone that you know when you comment on it. One of the great things that we see in the comments is tagging people. So I might tag Matt and say, and then it'll come up. And so you'll be able to pay attention to that content. So now I'm a little bit torn because we're both seeing that that it's coming down to, are you going to be able to just DM people and engage them that way? Or do you need to, I'm not going to say hide behind the content, but I'll say lead with the content to give yourself an opportunity to feel like you have the right to talk to a person?
Or do you have a baby and you do both? So the king and the queen get together and they're like, let's do 50% content and let's not hide behind that curtain and let's get past that mindset objection and asking for permission and do the DM outreach on top of it.
All right, Matt. I think we're leaning toward a Duke here. What
Hey,
the Duke and Duchess are
and Duchess.
actually being willing to actually put yourself out there and make comments and engage with people.
Well, as Holly said, you shouldn't be, and I want to stress that you shouldn't be hiring an agency to make your personal content, right?
Right,
So-
absolutely.
Unless that person knows you, like really knows you, or you have built a body of content that is so large that they can pull from it to speak in your voice, right? Like when Gary Vaynerchuk posts something on LinkedIn, it's not Gary posting it on LinkedIn. He's got like 20 people working for him that do that, right? However, you know, if he's posting something like a video or something on Facebook, yeah, that is him, right? But
And all
your
you got to do
average-
is throw in some of that New York language, and
right.
and you'll sound like Gary Vaynerchuk.
yeah, and he's like this and da 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 and doing this thing, right? But like the average entrepreneur, freelancer, right, solopreneur, small business owner doesn't have a content team behind them who's generating all of this stuff, right? So you should be speaking from your knowledge and your experience.
Yep.
And if you speak honestly from your knowledge and your experience, people will learn to trust you. And then when you do message them, if they haven't already messaged you first, right? When you do message them, then as Holly is saying, then they're going to trust you, and it's going to make that job a lot easier because now it's not cold calling. I had a client connect with me and they said, hey, we saw that on your LinkedIn that you work in the United States and Canada, and we have a product that we sell in both countries. So we think that you would be a good fit. Do you want to have a meeting with my boss? And I was like, sure, let's have a meeting. So I had a meeting with his boss, right? And she was like, oh, you know what? I feel like I have you at a disadvantage because I've been reading your stuff on LinkedIn for 6 months and I've read 2 of your books. And she knows all this stuff about me.
Wow.
She thinks we're friends and I've never talked to her in my life.
That's fabulous.
So that's how content becomes king. And not that I'm saying king is better than queen or anything about that.
All right.
I'm just
So
saying that the combination is super powerful.
we're going to wrap this up and give each of you a quick 30-second summary. So you have up to 30 seconds. Holly, we'll start with you to wrap up why direct messaging on LinkedIn is the best strategy for connecting with people. And then Matt, we'll have you say why content is the best strategy. So Holly.
So direct mess allows you to build those relationships, whether it's for collaboration or potential clients. And for me, yes, I use absolutely. But if I have to choose between the two, the thing that leads to action in my business, a pipeline in my business, partnerships of bodies of knowledge in my business is direct message and building those relationships over time that has been so pivotal. If you look at models like BNI, for example, LinkedIn is just a bigger platform for that. So you can continue to build and expand your knowledge base and your network. So to me, DM is queen and better than king.
All right, Holly, good summary. Matt, let's hear.
So content allows you a way to get actual FaceTime with someone over and over repeatedly because they're on their phone and it's in their face and they're doing this, right? And studies have shown when people look at something on their phone because they're holding their phone in their hand, they believe that those things are more valuable than if they saw them in another place. And what happens is your content becomes valuable to that person and they see your name repeatedly. So now you're getting the repetition that you would get from kind of advertising and marketing combined with them reading and learning about you, learning about your business and what you do. And often, as that strategy unfolds, they will reach out to you, which makes them way more likely to convert. However, in some businesses, like, just as Holly was saying, you might have to cut that timeline short because if you need customers in the next 90 days, it's too late for content, right? But if you want a regular flow of content of customers from now until whenever in the future, then regular content is over time is going to snowball and generate those clients for you.
All right, Matt, you used your 30 seconds well to very eloquently promote that content is king. Holly, I love that you bring up that DM is the queen. We were looking at maybe a child, maybe a duke, and a duchess have been created.
It's good to be the queen.
I think what we found out is that with LinkedIn, the best strategy is the emperor. And the emperor is relationships. And that you can build those relationships through DMs. You can build those relationships by creating important content, engaging content, and having comments through there. So, who's going to win? Is it going to be Holly? Is it going to be Matt? The bottom line is, I'm going to say that the best strategy, in light of the fact that people need a reason to be able to engage, is content today. But you still have to, you can't just put out the content. You have to engage with people. And it might be through those comments, but use direct messaging as well. So the key here is really following the emperor and thinking of LinkedIn not as your advertising platform, but as your relationship building platform. You guys are awesome. Holly, thank you for so eloquently putting out your message today. And Matt, what can I say? You were awesome as well and won the day.
All right.
And that is the Business Builders Throwdown.
That's 2 in a row, right? 2 out of 3.
Oh man.
I know.
Well, I tell you, we
everybody make sure you connect with me on LinkedIn so that you can see that content. It's just Matt Rouse.
Well, there we go.
LinkedIn.
This is the relationships are the key, and Holly nailed it that LinkedIn is about relationships. And if you're just trying to sell something, you will not be very popular. You will not engage with people, and you will lose.
Absolutely. Talking about connecting with people, Scott, what's the best way for someone to contact you?
Yeah, anyone wants to find me, go to my website, dscottsmith.com, and D_Scott at Twitter is the great place to go. And you can find me on LinkedIn, D. Scott Smith. And build a relationship. And don't send me auto DMs saying, I'm always looking to add more motivational listeners to my network.
And then more and more desperate messages every 20 hours until I finally just delete your connection. You can find me on LinkedIn. I'm Matt Rouse on LinkedIn. You can also check out our Twitter, and it's at Hook SEO on every platform that you can imagine, as well as hookseo.com. You can just throw a stick on the internet and you'll find me.
And so the best way to connect up with Holly is wait for her to send you a DM.
That's right.
Whoa! Wow!
How do we connect up with Holly?
All I know is there's a lot of testosterone here right now, and now it's on for next week. So you can find me on LinkedIn, Holly Jean Jackson. You can find my website at hollyjeanjackson.com, or if you just Google Holly Jean Jackson, Coach Holly Jean Jackson, you'll find my Instagram, my Facebook, all of the good stuff out there. And for me, my call to action is let's connect. Let's have a virtual coffee. It's not about a sales conversation. It's about building relationships, which is why I'm all about the direct message.
So for me, I will tell you that I am happy to be here every Thursday for the Business Builders Throwdown. This is the most fabulous way to be up to date and current with the best strategies, tactics, and tools for your business. And then every Wednesday, 7 a.m. Pacific, it's the Experience Live with Russ and Scott. And the third Friday of every month, which happens to be tomorrow, is the virtual global tea break, which I co-host with Alan Hennessy. We bring to an end another broadcast of the Business Builders Throwdown.
That's right.
Come back
everybody.
next week and see if Holly's going to win.
I'm gonna win next week. I'm bringing the fire.
That's right.
Invite your friends, bring popcorn, and enjoy the Business Builders Throwdown. We'll see everybody next week.